Hey everybody, well as you will all know by now, Clarkson got the sack. And I'm going to put my 2 penneth in, because I'm sure there's going to be so many penneths being put in over the next few days. There'll be an awful lot of penneths building up. So, Top Gear as a programme, I loved it. In previous years, it was more of a factual programme, and in more recent years, it became an entertainment programme. And, I mean, I admit that the bullshittery that was brought in, you know, I've talked about this sort of stuff before, the bullshittery is in when they fake stuff for entertainment purposes, and you can really see it. Yeah, it did take away from it to a point for me. But I still loved the programme and I still watched it. Now, to talk about the current issue, obviously as you may know, you should now, fucking God, you've been under a rock if you haven't. Clarkson basically, as I understand it, he either hit a producer and then gave him shit, gave him verbal abuse for 20 minutes, or he gave him verbal abuse for 20 minutes and then hit him. One round and the other, but basically he hit the guy. They couldn't film Top Gear the past 3 episodes, and the end of the season looks like it's not even going to get shown. I don't know what they're going to do about that, because there's loads of pre-recorded stuff for it. And they made the decision after a couple of weeks that he had to be sacked. Now, I have to agree, yeah, he's been pushing the line rather hard for a while. Now, that's not to say, see, he's very outspoken, and that's what some people don't like him for. He's outspoken, and he says what he thinks, and he also says what a lot of us think. And people in television are too scared to say, because, you know, because of the backlash, you know, you've got to be so politically correct, and he didn't stand for that shit. He was like, no, I'll fucking say what I want. And I respected him for that. And he was a funny guy. But he could be a dick at times. But if you go and punch someone, well, you've made the decision for them. If you or I punched one of our bosses, you know we would get the sack. And the BBC was in a very difficult position with this, obviously, because got the fucking lumps in this car park. In a very difficult position, because if they sacked him, which they have done, well, now they're going to have a public outcry of, oh, you can't do this, you've killed Top Gear, blah, 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 blah. And on the other side, if they didn't, people would say, well, that just justifies the people's opinion that, you know, if you're rich and influential and all this sort of shit, well, then you're going to get away with anything you want. And they needed to not do that to prove that they wouldn't allow people to get away with whatever they want. Although if I was Clarkson, apparently I heard that one of the BBC people high up said he was as bad as Jimmy Savile, the guy who had sex with dead babies. Fuck, I would sue the shit out of that guy. But there we go. It's been done. So what about the future? I know for some people you're not going to give 2 fucking shits about this. You might not have liked Top Gear or think, it's just a fucking TV programme, what does it matter? But it's been an institution. And it's been one of the biggest money makers for the BBC. That one punch has just cost the BBC, well, I've heard reports of anywhere between 50 and 100 million pounds a year. It's a fucking expensive punch. Because I don't think that Top Gear can continue. I mean, this is the thing, I do feel really sorry for James May and Richard Hammond, because, you know, people are saying, oh, you know, without Jeremy, Top Gear is nothing, and that's not fair, because it's like to suggest that they didn't bring anything to the programme. I think without them, if it was just Jeremy, it wouldn't have worked either. They worked as a trio perfectly. And this is why I don't think they can bring in a 3rd presenter to replace him. You can't do that, it's not going to work. So for the future, if Hammond and May decide to not do the show without Jeremy, which I could understand, they're going to shoot themselves in the foot. That's quite a good sign of solidarity between the 3 of them, if they decide to do that, because they're chucking their jobs away. But they can, you know, get other jobs doing stuff. So it's, you know, they can make do. But equally, if they wanted to stay, I would respect that. I'd understand why they'd want to do that. And yeah, it would be, they could make it work. But I don't think they could bring a 3rd person in, it would ruin it. So it would have to basically be just the 2 of them, or none of them, and get 3 new people in. And then I probably wouldn't be interested in the programme, because it just wouldn't be the same, it wouldn't be Top Gear. A lot of people have said, you know, oh, well, Jeremy Clarkson can just take the Top Gear to somewhere else, blah, blah. But he can't take Top Gear, because although he owned the rights to it a few years ago, apparently he sold them a couple of years ago, probably for quite a good amount of money, to the BBC. So he doesn't own the Top Gear brand anymore. But he doesn't need the brand. He and the other 2 could go off and make a motoring show from somewhere else. Another channel. because the BBC say basically he's not going to be working with the BBC anymore, because there was also talk about him doing Have I Got News For You, which would have been brilliant, because he was great when he was whenever he was on that. So yeah, it's a real weird one. It's like, you know, you always wonder, when are these things going to end? Because Top Gear has been such a thing. It's like, well, how is it going to come to an end? Is it going to be them getting really old? Is it going to be an argument? Is it going to... And now we know. It came out of the blue. It was just... Yeah, I know Jeremy's caused himself enough trouble in the past, and people say, well, he's lucky to even still have a job. Well, yeah, that might be, but that's just because he can piss people off easily, because he likes to say what he thinks, and people will always disagree when you've got that many people, you know, watching you. I mean, viewing figures are like 350 million people. Jesus. A lot of people are saying the BBC's now dead. I don't think they're dead. They've lost a bloody good chunk of their income because of this, and I'm sure they're thinking to themselves, oh, for God's sake, why did this have to go public? We could have dealt with this in-house. We could have slapped some people in the fucking head. Maybe they should have just allowed the other producer to give Jeremy a couple of cheap shots. And being right there, bygones be bygones. Let's keep the 50 to 100 million quid a year. But it went public, and they had to do that because obviously they, what were they supposed to do? The show didn't go on. So what do you think for the future? Do you think they could continue with just May and Hammond? Do you think May and Hammond are going to continue? They may put their word out by that point, which way they want to go. As I say, I would deeply respect them for staying, than putting up with all of the crap that they're going to have to put up with. If they have to bring a third presenter in, well, I feel sorry for them, because I think that will make them feel very uncomfortable. And equally, if they go in a sign of solidarity, why can't I say that word today, to Jeremy, then, you know, I understand that. As I say, I feel really sorry for those two, because people are really not giving them credit for them being presenters and, you know, worthwhile people in their own right without Clarkson. I mean, James May has produced some of the most interesting programmes of the three on their own, in my opinion, like Toy Stories and that glider one they did. The toy glider across the channel, I think it was. Or not, no, they couldn't do the channel, let's go a different way. Amazing programme. I love the guy. Hammond, yeah, okay, his programmes are sort of science-based, but they're a little bit, you know, people who don't know anything about science-based. And you get the feeling that Hammond sometimes doesn't really know too much about it and is kind of reading from a script. But fair enough, he's good at getting kids involved in stuff, you know, like with Brainiac and all that sort of stuff. Tricky one, isn't it? Anyway, let me know, what do you think? What do you think? Come on, let's talk about this stuff. It's not like I've got anything else to talk about at the moment. I've got lots of stuff going on at the moment, and unfortunately all of it is pretty boring. And it's not allowing me to make videos so much, but things will improve. Things are getting sorted one by one. I'm getting stuff sorted out. It just goes to show, violence never solves anything. Shout and scream if you want. Tell someone they're a dick. But if you punch him in the face, you've just made your own freaking bed, and you might as well make a night of it, because you're sleeping in it now, buddy. Anyway, I'll catch you next time. Cheerio. Look, daffodils, because the sun is shining, but it's fucking bollocks because it's pissing down tomorrow. Right, where was I?
Oh,
yeah,
I'll tell you what,
that's my big issue.
but that's the backwards, it caught me right in the nuts.
Things that shouldn't be the way they are at the moment, and, you know, common sense will tell you that
you know, when it
be
slowly
that way,
creeps up into you.
and they make it simple, but they never do. It's the same as Facebook and a lot of